All right, so we're on the front page of the website, and instantly the first thing I see is the headline, the Eugene Williams and the AKA Eugene Genay. Um, to me, as an outsider coming in, that seems confusing and it's kind of awkward. I think just a regular title, pick one or the other, and then tell me what you do. I know from looking at the site previous to this that you're a musician and you have a band, so let's focus on making sure that people realize that right away. Just below that, to be honest, this navigation is really it's a lot. It's just hard to look at as a person coming in. It's hard to figure out where to go. It's not very concise. So the navigation definitely needs some work. Couple things about that is right now home buttons are really redundant. You shouldn't need a home button. Clicking on a main graphic or the logo or the title or something like that should always take you back to the home page. So that's kind of a redundant feature and it's really not needed. You want to minimize the stuff in your navigation, particularly when you're talking about going to mobile so that things are mobile friendly. Second thing in the navigation is the CBD products. Feels really out of place. I get that it's a side hustle kind of a thing, but putting it as the second thing in the navigation makes it sort of this priority that doesn't fit into the website. So it's confusing and it's probably going to cause a lot of people to bounce instantly because it just doesn't feel like it belongs. So I would definitely just move that off of this entirely and have it as its own website, own unique thing, but having it as a part of this feels very out of place, and it's probably going to cause people to think they're in the wrong place and bounce. Moving over, I'm going to talk about some of these things because I've looked at this, but going into sponsor contact for iHeartRadio. One is that's the title of that navigation piece is a little hard to understand what you're actually asking for, but when you click on it, it kind of just gives you this contact information here to contact to do something with the to be honest, as an outsider coming in, I'm confused. I'm not really sure what you're asking me for at this point, other than that this is the contact. So you've got a radio show that you do on iHeartRadio. I think you need to give some information about that. When is it? How do people listen? Links to it, things like that. Maybe some samples of it for people to hear, kind of thing. But just sort of throwing out the sponsor and contact information, I don't think is all that helpful. Your tour calendar, that's pretty straightforward, though. One thing to note is you've got a different title here than you do here. So maybe instead of upcoming dates, I would just call it, upcoming, or maybe upcoming shows or something like that, and make it consistent across both. Also, in looking at this prior, I can tell you that Be My Valentine is an album. Not knowing that coming in sounds a little odd at first, and then once you click on it, you realize that it's an album, and you can kind of listen to that song or whatever. I'm going to put all of those album pieces together and talk about that real quick. So, Be My Valentine, the music tracks here, and Shake It, Shake It, all of that stuff should just be under one navigation title, like songs and albums, and put all that stuff underneath it or on that page and clean up that navigation and just kind of move all of that into one thing. Having it spaced around like this just gets confusing. There's no context for it, so you really don't know what you're looking at. And what's also very confusing is you've got the Christmas music, and then under that is a navigation for other albums. So it doesn't really make a lot of sense for people when they're trying to navigate to figure out what's going on. And then you've got Buy Eugene's Download Albums Songs. That phrasing is a little awkward. It's I would think I would just say something like, downloadable albums or downloadable songs, and I would include all of that as part of the page that talks about the albums and the songs that you've got, because it's really all related under that piece. videos, this is a page that I would basically say, looking at this, that I would probably just scrap everything that's here. I don't mean to sound harsh in that, but looking at the videos here, like playing this video, you play it and it's a great song, but it's not really a video. It's just sort of a single image slideshow. Should probably turn down the music so you guys can hear me too. But anyway, it's sort of the single image slideshow kind of a thing talking about it. So it's not quite a video. Here's another really big important tip. I love posting videos to websites with YouTube, but one thing you really want to do when you post a video to YouTube is to click the option to not show the suggested videos. The big reason for that is it pops up this and they see something they like and they're going to leave your site. So you want to turn that off. You want to make sure people stay on your site. So in this case, you just want to turn off the suggested videos piece. The other videos in here are sort of the same thing. There's some longer videos, but there's also a lot of these links in here that don't seem to make sense, and they don't really convey what you're trying to push when it comes to the videos. Again, this one is sort of, it's not really a video as much as it is a song with this single image portrayed in there. So not that these are bad, but when you have a new client coming to your site and they see videos, they're going to expect to see promo videos, samples of you playing, samples of the band, things like that. That's not quite what this is, and some of this feels a little bit dated, and so I would consider just sort of scrapping that. And then again, there's this long list of links underneath here that don't really make sense. Just as Twitter, this is the site, YouTube, like there's just some things in here that don't really work and make sense, and people are going to see that. They're not even going to bother reading it, but it's just sort of a waste. So I would definitely consider just sort of scrapping that whole page and maybe reworking that in a couple of ways. The photos page, when it loads. The load time on the photos page actually tells me that these photos are probably not optimized all that well. It took a little while to load. Again, some of these photos just feel a little dated. And I would consider maybe working on updating the photos in here just to kind of make it a little bit more up to date, a more relevant thing, so it doesn't quite look quite as dated as I think it feels. All right, so moving on, the bio song list. So these are two things that I don't think belong in the same navigation category. Your bio and your song list are two separate things. So you really want to keep those sort of separated. If you're going to have a song list, that's fine. If you're going to have a bio, that's fine. But ideally, they would be separate pieces. They're not something that's going to happen together naturally when someone's trying to look through your website. That being said, once I go to the song list, it is a long just pile of words. And I really, my honest opinion is I just don't see people reading that. There's no way to sort it or organize it. A much better solution for this might be to have like a search feature where you can search the songs or have them by categories or something. Not sure if you're trying to do like a select which song you want at your reception or the wedding or whatever, but that's going to be a really hard thing for people to look through and try to figure out. So I would find a better solution for that, and probably something that's searchable. So maybe some type of database solution for that where they can search a song or they can pull up by genre or by author or artist or something like that. But definitely separate those two out, because this page in and of itself is just a lot of text, and on mobile it's overwhelming and people are just going to bounce. That's going to be the reality of that one. The fundraiser also, it feels out of place, and there's no context for it. There's no information on the website explaining what the fundraiser is and what it's going for or why it's there. Um, you've got links to things on YouTube, but that all those create customer hurdles. You're making them go do the research about what it is instead of providing the information up front. So it's another thing that's just generally not going to work well as a way of hosting this on a website. You want to have that information up front right away so people know why there's a fundraising thing. But again, as part of the navigation, it doesn't really fit. You want the navigation to be exactly what your customer is coming and looking for. So these are all of this kind of stuff tends to fall under what I would call like an about or some other kind of thing. I would have navigation at the top that's like weddings and events and booking and contact and things like that, rather than all these interesting little pages and stuff. It's just not going to be nearly as effective. You want someone to come. So one of your audiences would be brides who are looking to hire an entertainer for their wedding, whether for the ceremony, the reception, what have you. So far, there's absolutely no mention of a wedding anything on the site, and so you're making someone do a whole lot of work and a whole lot of searching in order to figure out what you do and what you're offering. So you definitely want to make sure that those titles in the navigation are exactly what you want your potential clients or customers to see, and then move everything else away. It can go in the footer, it can go into its own kind of category. Some of the stuff just isn't really needed at all, or is kind of redundant. Again, like all the music tracks and all that kind of stuff, all that I think would be summed up under one piece. Guest book it's really not used anymore. And in all honesty, looking at this, these posts are from 2017, 2014. As a person coming to do research and not seeing anything newer than that, I feel like I found a site that's dead. And so this is something that's better to scrap than anything else. Ideally, what I would do is replace it with something like a blog where you could easily post stuff from recent events, and then if people need to leave comments about how awesome it was to have you at that event, they can talk about it there in that way, and that gives you a place to post new content and things like that, or clips or songs or something. But a guest book is really something that's not done anymore, and you should just scrap that. And again, Shake It, Baby Dance would go underneath that sort of songs, downloads, albums sort of subheading. I want to go back to the home page and kind of scroll down the home page now that we got through the navigation. And so here's the other big thing that I see. As soon as I go to the home page, it's not actually the home page. This is another bio, and it's not the same bio as the bio on the bio and songs. So it's very much confusing, and I'm not sure how to get back to the home page now. I realize, I got to click this to get to the actual home page, which is not really the home page either, but it's basically the list of tour dates, which is really your upcoming shows. So I would change that. I wouldn't have the upcoming dates as the main thing. I would have the kind of the core bits of information you need. Here's some other things that, as I go through this, and I made some notes because there was just a lot to think about, nowhere on this site does it tell me how to contact you. I can't find anything on here that is an email address or a phone number. There are no social media links. All of those things are missing, and that's huge. Even if I wanted to hire you at this point, I don't know how. The only place I found any actual contact is the sponsor's contact, and as a client, I wouldn't click that or use that because I feel like that might take me, I would feel like I'm clicking the wrong thing. Like I have no intent of sponsoring an iHeartRadio contract or anything like that. And so, I feel like I'd be contacting the wrong, but that be the only place where I find contact information is going to be problematic. You want that front and center for a bride, for a venue, for a promoter, whatever. You don't want to make them search your website for how to contact you. So that stuff should all be on the very first page. The phone number should be up in the heading. the phone number, email address, all that stuff should be down in the footer as well. It's just you're missing out on an awful lot by not having that front and center and easy to get to. So that's something that needs to be fixed fairly quickly. Down here, the calendar, all this stuff is fine. The listen to the song thing, probably not something that needs to be in the footer. I put that navigation stuff back down in the footer. This is sort of an awkward place to have a player like that. And from a technological perspective, I didn't see players like that in the other places. So it's kind of weird that there's this player here. I would kind of move that somewhere else. And just as another tip, nowadays no one wants to join a newsletter, at least not without some kind of incentive. So just having a title here that says join our newsletter doesn't kind of tell me what the newsletter is. There's no context for it on the site of what I'm going to be getting in that newsletter, what the benefits are to me. So I don't have any incentive to sign up for the email. So I guess coming up with an incentive, or changing that phrasing, like learn about our latest shows, or get special offers on our albums, or something like that. Something that may want people to sign up for a newsletter. But if you're not actually doing a newsletter, then don't do that either. If you're not actually sending out emails to people, you can just scrap it, because nothing feels more like you're neglecting them than to say, sign up for my newsletter, and then they never hear from you anyway. So if you're not going to do it, just remove it. Couple other things I do want to go to that I think are really important. So I'm going to click on the music tracks here. And again, it's going to take a second to load. And I'm not sure if that's just the server side of things, or if that's on the back end, it's having to load some things. But the point of all of this is to be able to buy or purchase or download some of these songs. And so a couple things about this is in here I notice a lot of code like that. Like this is a bad link. It doesn't work. It's just the actual code. There were other places like that I saw. I'll have to find a couple. But anyway, clicking on this, for example, I click on it, and it takes me to kind of the same thing again, but only as its own page. So that's one extra click I had to click. And now I can finally just play it there. But I should be able to just play it from that first one, but I don't see a way to download this one. There was one. Okay, so let's do this one, because this one says buy album. So this all of a sudden becomes an e-commerce kind of website or platform, because you're trying to get someone to buy your album. And so if I want to buy the album, there's no add to cart, because your website doesn't actually have a shopping cart kind of component. It's not set up for e-commerce. But I click buy the album, and I actually have to click down here. It's not intuitive. Like I click buy album, it doesn't do anything. I have to click the CD Baby. Most people, I know what CD Baby is. Most people don't know what CD Baby is. People are going to confuse that for a different album, especially when this one's called Be My Valentine and the next one might be, CD Baby, or that might be a song title or something. That is inherently confusing to people. So I would change the wording on that and figure out a better way to do that. But you're also then pulling people completely off the site to this, to another site completely. So it's just a lot of clicks to go through that to download. There was another place where something similar like that happened, but it was multiple clicks to get there. So it's like Funship Groove. Again, you got to click on it twice. I don't know what this means. So again, there's some things in here that they're there, I'm sure, for a reason, but the outsider doesn't necessarily know what this means. And so there's a lot of insider language that we want to make sure we clean up. I'm trying to find that one spot that I saw, but anyway, there's a couple other places where there's just some code that's sitting out there in weird ways. Like here. This is just sort of weird code that needs to get cleaned up, and just doesn't make it feel as professional as you want it to feel. Um, all these links here, um, especially this one that says get Twitter followers and stuff, that just feels weird and spammy. I would really consider just scrapping. Really, I'd consider scrapping the videos and photos completely and starting over with that. Definitely scrap the guest book, combine all these songs, albums, things like that into one kind of a category. Get rid of the CBD stuff. Figure out the bio, which one you want, how to do that. Add some photos to those pages and things like that. That's a great way. Instead of having galleries where you're like, here's photos, here's videos, intersperse that stuff inside the content you have so that these really big text-heavy pages are broken up with something visual. That would be another really good way to do it. Also, the banner here with these 4 images, it doesn't quite work. You can't click it for anything. And out of context, I don't know what any of this stuff is or means, so it's a little confusing. Again, I'd much rather see something right up front that says, booking and, weddings, and has a picture of you actually doing those things. The media pass just kind of gets a little confusing there. And so I would just kind of rework that a lot. So anyway, I hope that helps. I know there's a lot to sort of take in and digest with everything there. But there's just a lot on this site, and there's a lot of things that I think in order to be successful with your website, you're going to need to make a lot of changes and really think about the end user and how someone who has no real experience with you is going to come to the website and get the information that they need. This is a kind of a case of knowing too much about yourself and saying, okay, you're assuming people know more than they do. And so I think kind of going at it and saying, okay, if I was to market to girls that just got engaged who are looking for a wedding band, what do they need to see? What's the one question they're going to have that we can answer right away? That kind of a mentality. You've got other services, other things you do, and then you can kind of build upon that, but start thinking of it from that perspective, and that will really help. Because otherwise, it's just sort of everything is wherever, and you know what it means, and you know where it is, but your audience doesn't, and it's probably going to cause a lot of bounces. Not having that contact information is super problematic. I mean, if you did nothing else with this other than put your contact information at the very top up here, that would be a huge improvement. So just some things to consider as you go forward, and I hope that really helps. And until next time, I'll see you later.